Alfred Nara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to take a first call in the Social Security Commencement of Benefits Amendment Bill, all stages in this matter of urgency. And Mr. Speaker, the point I want to raise, and as the previous speaker has talked about this bill, the issue is that this has been a legislative error made since 1998. And so it goes some time back. So I think there needs to be some cognizance that the issue of responsibility and liability probably goes a long way back. However, we are at this point where we do need to address a critical and a technical issue where the legislation does not follow policy. So I just want to put that on record, Mr. Speaker. While we can talk about the responsibility and liability of this government, which it is taking under urgency, we also remind the House and those that may be listening, this is an issue which is a legislative error since 1998, Mr. Speaker. So I want to make that point really clear, but we take responsibility and this is what needs to. I do want to acknowledge the member too, because I mean, she did also make petitions and also inquiries into this, and we were under a previous bill, so I know that it was also through her persistence to try and get us into a point where we could address this issue. But I also want to acknowledge the Minister herself, who's also taken on the roles of responsibility to ensure that we progress this bill under urgency because of the concerns that it has. And Mr. Speaker, I want to just talk about some of those concerns as well. So we must act quickly to mitigate the increasing financial and legal risk this technical error poses to the affordability of our welfare system, Mr. Speaker. So I think that's quite critical and that's important as well. One of the issues too, Mr. Speaker, that comes up is that the 1996 Tax Reduction and Social Policy Bill, and I know that people will be riveted out there to hear about this bill, but it contained an error that technically provides for benefit and stand-down periods to end a day earlier than intended. So there is the technical aspect of this bill which it is trying to address, and so again I want to go on record as commenting on that, and so that's what this is trying to address. The other aspect, I suppose, and the concerns that have been raised by the member in her speech was around the impact to beneficiaries. The bill protects people from the effect of a retrospective validation. If they have had a benefit commence on the day that a stand-down period ended before the amendment is enacted, whether through a new grant or a review or appeal process commenced before the bill comes into force. Any reviews relating to that period back to the 3rd of June 1998, which are lodged prior to the legislative amendment coming into effect, are allowed. And so, Mr. Speaker, this is to provide some sort of protection for those in that situation as well. A couple of other points, Mr. Speaker, that those affected people can do this before or in the case of a benefit that commenced on or after the 20th of May 2014 within a 6-week period after the bill comes into force. The other thing is that these protection provisions are a measure of the government's good faith and do not negate the original policy intent that a benefit should commence on the day after a stand-down period begins. Mr. Speaker, some other points I want to raise is that the legal and financial risk of this area has been increasing, so we are fixing the problem. We do acknowledge that it is a problem. It has been a problem for some time. We do need to address this. In fact, in May 2014, the Social Security Appeal Authority alerted the Minister of Social Development of this area. And through that alert and through that judgment, it was important that they act in the appropriate way. In May 2015, Cabinet did, however, agree a correction was needed with full retrospective effect to the 3rd of June 1998 when the 1996 Tax Reduction Policy Bill took effect. At this time, the risk of the Crown was considered relatively low, but a plan was put in place to correct the error that was established and amendments were included in the Social Security Extension of Young Persons Services and Remedies Matters Bill, the amendment bill which is currently before the Social Services Select Committee. Mr. Speaker, in the meantime, the Ministry practice was to continue to reflect the policy intent until the legislative correction was passed, as it was considered that people should only be able to get the assistance that they were intended to have. So, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to other opportunities to speak in the House on this bill, right through all its stages through urgency. Again, we first of all take responsibility for what was an error that goes some time prior to the time of 1998. It is a legislative error, a technical error that needs to be corrected. The intent of the Minister and of the Select Committee and also hopefully of the House is that we will correct this error through this bill, through the House through urgency. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill in its first reading to the House.
Portal Williams.